going to start this video by asking you two questions. Question number one, do we need more simulators as FPV pilots? And question number two, do you like to chase things with your FPV drones? Hey everybody, I'm Bacon Ninja, and if you answered yes to either of those questions at the beginning, today's video might bring you something interesting, potentially. Today we're here to talk about TRYP FPV's new simulator. That's TRYP, and I believe it is pronounced TRYP. I could be pronouncing it wrong, but they have a simulator that is now in early release on Steam for $11.99, which is pretty darn cheap. But do we need more simulators as FPV pilots? There are so many simulators. What is the point in all of these simulators that we have? I probably own 8 of them. Why is this one important at all? Why should I buy this? Why should I even look at it twice? Well, before we get to the ups and downs of this simulator, I just want to give you the rundown about what it actually is so that you can get a feel for what we're talking about here. TRYP is a simulator built on the new Unreal 5 engine that uses really expansive maps to give you a little different take on what FPV simulators can be. In this early release stage, there are 3 maps, kind of a mountain diving map, a more industrial map, and a map kind of set in the pyramids of Egypt, which is pretty cool. But all of the maps are very large and expansive. There are outer limit boundaries to them, but essentially anything you see in the map you can interact with. There are no limits to what you can fly around or interact with your drone. The only limits are the very large outer boundary limits, which will just essentially stop you at the edges of the map. But you have a lot of room to work with in there, and inside of that, because it is built on the Unreal Engine, things are pretty beautiful. There are very realistic sunbursts and very realistic trees and ground textures and lots of birds and other moving things that give you the sense of realism while you're in these very large immersive maps. On top of all the immersion, they're also adding the ability to chase things we normally do not get to chase in FPV simulators, like people diving off of cliffs in wingsuits, people jumping out of hot air balloons with parachutes, rallycross racing, motocross racing, and a bunch of other cool activities and challenges inside of the game itself that just give you a different level of exposure to things you can be doing with your FPV drone, and a little practice at things that you probably don't get to do in real life. You never know, once in a lifetime opportunities do come around, and wouldn't it be nice to be able to practice for those before you have to take them up? Maybe. Along with all of those things, it also has a racing mode, which is kind of interesting. It's a different take on racing. It's not so much a traditional style of racing that I am used to, but it is racing nonetheless. You try to cruise through the gates in a very elongated kind of course as fast as you can. It's got a different kind of challenge, that's for sure. And along with that racing mode, there is a learn how to fly mode, which is kind of interesting for a simulator to have. I know that Liftoff does have a learn how to fly tutorial section, but so does this one. Now I will say the how to fly tutorial is not like how to fly your FPV drone to the letter. It's not that. It is essentially what do my sticks do, so that a new beginner at FPV can pick up a controller, probably a gamepad for the first time, and figure out what the yaw and the roll and the pitch and the throttle all do, and then it just releases them into the simulator. It's not really giving them any real clear goals to hit once they understand the axes. And I will say the English translation is not the best on those. So it may be confusing for some people if they have a hard time with English in the first place. The translation is not very good in some of these menus. So now that I've given you just a little rough understanding of what the game is, I'm going to put some footage up here of me playing it for a little bit while we talk about what I do and do not like about this game. So, first off, it's well worth the money for an early release. It's well worth the money. There are a couple of prerequisites you're going to have to just keep in mind here. In order to get the performance out of this game that makes it appealing where it looks good, you're going to need a heavy-duty gaming rig. There's just no way around it. I played this game on an RTX 20 series card with a really nice Ryzen CPU, really good SSDs. Now that's not current gen. That is a couple of gen, well, now it's a couple of gen. We're on a 30 series RTX cards. But my 20 series card is a pretty nice card for a 20 series card. And it still struggled a little bit. Now I'm running it on Ultra, and I was capturing it. The footage you're watching right now, I was actually capping while I played, and it was a little bit laggy and choppy, and it was a little hard to play. But on a 30 series card, I think you'd be doing just fine. So if you've got something like a 3060 Ti or a 3070 RTX card, then you're probably going to do fine with this game. If you got a lower end laptop or desktop, it's going to be a little rough. And the graphics will go potato pretty quick on you. So if you're running it on a lower end PC, I would recommend maybe not. You can try it and you might be happy with it, but you might also have wasted 12 bucks. So just keep that in mind. It may be fine. You may be happy with the potato quality that you get out of it, or it may be a total bummer for you and you wish you had something different. So, you know, most people with lower end PCs stick to Velocidrone because it plays well. We shall see how this one pans out over time. Other than the performance, some other things that you're going to want to keep in mind are there are only 3 maps. This is an early release. There are only 3 maps to play in. So don't get your hopes up for other maps yet. We don't know what the release schedule looks like. I assume that there will be more maps in the future, but you're pinned into 3 for now. Inside of those 3 maps, you do have some options. So if you go into the map and you start flying and you hit the M key, it will bring up the map menu, and that allows you to select different activities or different areas or different challenges within that map. And it kind of gives you a new take on the map every time you do. You can start a new challenge or a new activity and the map feels a little different. It will automatically take you to the start of that challenge or activity, and then every time you reset, it'll take you back to the start of that challenge or activity for as long as you have the box checked in the map menu. And then if you want to get out of that, you just uncheck them all, hit the start button again, and you can fly freestyle across the whole map, or mountain dive, or fly up a pyramid, whatever you want to do. You can just do that. But, you know, the 3 map thing's a little limiting. I'm not going to say that's a down point because it is an early release, and the 3 maps they have are beautiful. Just get used to using that M menu for map, because it'll be really helpful to just start the activities or try a new challenge and make it taste a little different for a little bit and not get so stale. And then hopefully they're putting more maps in there in the near future. So moving on from maps, let's talk about the drones. There are a handful of drones in there already. There's a 6-inch, a 7-inch, a 5-inch freestyle. There's a couple different setups for cinematic. I believe there's a Cinelifter as well. So there's some default stuff in there. It's not real great. It's whatever the creators decided felt like those things to them. And you can't go in and edit them. But what you can do is you can make a copy. So if you go make a copy, and for instance, I did this with the 5-inch freestyle. I made a copy of the 5-inch freestyle. I named it the Manta. And I went in and messed with the sliders. And some of the sliders on there are things like prop size, motor size, KV, some of the aerodynamic efficiencies of the quad. I recommend that you mess with the sliders and get the voltage in the motor and the prop size, kind of what you fly in real life. And then you can go into some of the other tabs and mess with the effect of lift or the effect of drag on the quad until it feels right. I noticed that I had to turn down my lift coefficient or my lift, whatever the lift exponent is in there, the slider. I had to turn it down just a little bit because it felt floaty. So I turned it down until the quad fell like I would like. And that's how I got my freestyle rig to feel somewhat similar to what I fly in real life with my Manta. So it's not a knock on it. Again, it's an early release and there's only a certain number of quads. You can't do anything about the physical look of the quads. They just look the way they look. So you don't see them anyway when you fly. So, you know, what are you going to do? But the physics are simulator physics. Don't get your hopes up here. They are simulator physics. They feel like liftoff. Some people might say that the physics are better than liftoff. That's a valid point. I feel like the physics are basically what liftoff has to offer, except for I have more control over them. So I can make it feel the way I want it to feel, where I can't really do that in liftoff. So that's a bonus to me. As far as rates for the drones, you do have the option of actual or beta flight. I think there's a couple other options for rates, so whatever you're flying is good, and they were easy enough to put in for me. Some other things, In there are the racing mode, which I alluded to earlier. It's not really racing. It is racing, but it's not like multi-GP racing like you do in Velocidrome. It's just hitting some big gates, which is actually, I think, really good for beginners or people working on cinematic lines, because it forces you to kind of smoothly follow really long, flowy lines. But to each their own, whether that is what they want or not. For me, I probably won't use the racing mode very much, but I appreciate that it's there. It is kind of nice to just have it. But all in all, is it worth the money for a pre-release or early release on Steam? The $12 for TRYP FPV Simulator? I think if you have a workstation or desktop or laptop that can handle that kind of graphics crunch, and you enjoy chasing things, maybe more than freestyle, or you enjoy freestyle but maybe more open air stuff, not necessarily really tight bando bashing. There are some spots in there for it, but you've really got to potentially like mountain surfing and some open air stuff and chasing to really want to get into this simulator. And for me, it's definitely a buy. That is going to vary if you don't have a PC that's going to potentially play this very well, or you're just getting into racing and you need to go Velocidrome, you want to get into racing, or if you're just getting into FPV altogether. I mean, this is an okay first sim. I wouldn't say it's the best first sim out there. It's not the simplest. You're not going to make it feel like a real quad like you'd be able to if you had experienced real quads. So if this is your first sim, I might steer you somewhere else. But for those of you out there that own 8 sims like me and a place to play them that can play them well, sure, it's worth the $12. I say pick it up all day, every day. And we're going to hopefully see a lot more development toward this in the very near future. I know the devs worked very hard. There's a very small team, and they've worked very hard to get it to this point. So hopefully they continue that upward trend, and we see them make full use of the Unreal 5 engine, and we can see some truly amazing things come out of this simulator and add some really awesome places to fly. But yeah, anyway, if you haven't, you might go check it out. There's a link in the description below for this early release on Steam. You can go read through the comments that people have made on there, maybe read through the recommended specs and see if it's for you. And if this video has been helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, consider subscribing to the channel. We're growing all the time, and I really enjoy interacting with everyone on the channel, all of the subscribers and the people that have feedback on my videos. And speaking of feedback on videos, if you would please just go down to the comments below and let me know what simulator is currently your favorite simulator and why that one out of all of them is, because we have so many selections of FPV pilots. But anyway, thanks for hanging out with me and checking out the TRYP FPV Simulator. Until next time, I'll catch you later.